This is Brenna Quigley, your personal geologist and terroir guide. Join me on a road trip through the geologic history of your favorite wine regions around the world. This is Roadside Terroir. Hello, and welcome back to Roadside Terroir. The following episode is a bit of a departure from our intensive season about farming for terroir. But bear with us, because it's filled with some of the most useful tips and techniques for tasting that I've used throughout my career. So I think you're going to love it. This episode, like many others, features Paul Wasserman, and we should note that his company, Becky Wasserman and Company, are longtime sponsors and supporters of Roadside Terroir. They helped to sponsor this episode by donating the wines that will be featured in the following tasting. We are determined to keep Roadside Terroir free and accessible for everyone for as long as possible, and we are always actively fundraising so we can continue to make more episodes. To learn more about sponsorship opportunities, please get in touch by emailing us at contact@roadsideterroir.com. And if you'd like to support our show personally, please consider becoming an insider or donating to support this season. Insiders gain access to all sorts of cool stuff, including extra photos, maps, travel opportunities, and extended interviews with our guests. To learn more, check out our website, roadsideterroir.com, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram @roadsideterroir. Please don't drink and drive, and remember to keep your eyes on the road. This episode contains explicit language. Today, we're going to explore some of the foundational concepts I learned in the early days of my wine and terroir career, taught to me by the one and only Paul Wasserman. Paul was one of my early mentors in wine, and our work together in Burgundy, starting back in 2015, was instrumental in helping me connect the dots between geology and wine taste and texture. So, today, we're going to listen in on a conversation and a tasting Paul and I did in Los Angeles a couple of months ago at Abe Schoener's Urban Winery Symposium series, 12 Seats. The original thought for this episode was to record the event just to pull out a few key pieces of the tasting for a more focused episode on minerality and how to taste Burgundy. But as I listened through the audio for the first time, I was transported back to this magical little bunker on the side of the train tracks in downtown Los Angeles, and I immediately knew that I wanted to share this whole experience with you, train and airplane rumbles and all. I've cut a good amount of the guest commentary in order to preserve their privacy, and will chime in here and there to help set the scene as needed, but other than that, I invite you to listen along to this special evening. My only wish is that you could have the wines in front of you too. I arrive at the Los Angeles River Wine Company in the late afternoon, just as the sinking sun starts to give the air that hazy orange LA glow. I've been stuck in traffic for about an hour, going about 2 exits in 30 minutes, and then, as I passed junkyard after junkyard, I somehow had the distinct feeling that I was in the wrong place and the right place at the same time. I pulled off the street and onto a narrow dirt path that ran along the railroad tracks to my left. There are deep puddles in the mud, trash scattered on the ground, and to my right is a line of what appear to be small storage units with those metal roll-up doors, colorfully adorned with flashy graffiti. Now I'm pretty sure I'm in the right place because this looks like just the kind of thing Abe Schoener would love, but still kind of wished I wasn't. I parked my car and crept towards an open garage door. As I got closer, I heard the soothing sounds of jazz on vinyl, and also heard a man across the train tracks yell, "Hey girl, I like your style." But as I walked up to the open door, I suddenly entered into a different world, into a dream, like a secret garden, but for wine. I found myself looking into a beautiful, warm, narrow room with brick walls and hundreds of gorgeous dried flowers hanging from the ceiling. Barrels line one side of the room, stacked 2 high, and a library of books lines the opposite side. In the middle is a long wooden table with seats for 12, and my dear friend Abe beaming at me with welcome, while Kaylee, his assistant winemaker, polishes delicate glassware. A few minutes later, Paul Wasserman peeks in, and I see the look of nervous awe on his face and assume that must have been the same look I had when I arrived. In the remaining minutes before our guests arrive, we prepare the wines and ourselves and hash out a few final discussion points. Abe wants me to begin the evening, and suddenly I have no idea what I'm going to say. As the sun sets, Kaylee lights a couple dozen candles and turns on a few strings of lights, and our guests start to arrive.
Yeah, you too. Yes. You too. And this
Welcome.
Is
Here with me.
Ian. And you have a welcome wine for you. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Ian. He's great. Great wine.
Abe Schoener welcomes everyone and begins the evening.
So I'm welcoming you to our winery. So many of you are new to this place, and I'm so glad to have you here. So Kaylee and I make wine in this very space. This is Kaylee. And for the first few years, we made wine only from vineyards close to Los Angeles. And we released those wines under the label of the Los Angeles River Wine Company. And beginning last year, we started making more wine also from Northern California. And we released those wines under a different label, a label that I've made wine under for 20-something years, called the Scullion Project. So the youngest vineyard close to Los Angeles that we work with right now is 1918.
Wow. Where?
The oldest is 1896.
Where is that?
It's in Temecula on the Pechanga Reservation. And it's a fragment that remains from what had been a 300-acre vineyard. It's about 2 acres now. So that's what we do. That's what we do in this space. And we try to do events like this once a month, where we have somebody who comes in from outside to add their thinking and their voice to our thinking and our voices. And today it's Brenna and Paul. And I'm just so happy and excited to have you guys here. So I think I'm going to turn things over to Brenna right now.
So I just wanted to say thank you to Abe for having me, for having us. I think this is such a magical place, and I'm sure you all felt it walking up here. It's an honor to be able to speak here and to be able to talk about the things that I think about all day long, I guess. So 10 years ago, almost exactly 10 years ago, I showed up in Burgundy, and at this point barely knew anything at all about wine. I knew Burgundy was like really important though, and I was pretty sure that the wines were expensive, but that was honestly probably about all that I knew. And I arrived knowing that my job was to make some sense out of the terroir, out of the geology, to help people feel confident in talking about rocks with wine. And this is where I met Paul, who had spent his entire life in Burgundy. And so after a few days, we looked at a lot of rocks, we drank a lot of wine, and after a few days, Paul invited me to come back for a month. And I'm like, all right, this is obviously not something that's gonna happen in a few days. So let's spend a month. So I went home, I got my passport renewed as fast as I possibly could because it was about to expire, and came back for an entire month in, I think, June, staying with his family, his wonderful mother. We just had kind of the most magical summer that I can remember. In those early days, the roles were pretty clear. So my role was to just be the geologist. I was there to like identify rocks. And I remember my family are geologists too, and I would call them and I'd be like, it's kind of like your worst nightmare, because it's just people picking up rocks and being like, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? Abe will also send me pictures of rocks with no clarification of where in the country he is, usually from like a train window. It's like, name the rock. Yeah.
I have so many times thought about risking crashing my car on Laurel Canyon to text you a picture of a fucking rock.
Yes. And I'll skip forward a lot of things, but 10 years later, we have spent countless months searching. We have hundreds and hundreds of hours for the podcast trying to figure out and make some sense of the geology and terroir of Burgundy. There are 10 episodes. We set out to make 6. We made 10. They were all supposed to be 45 minutes long. Some of them are an hour and a half. You know, it's the rabbit hole of Burgundy that for me, my entire wine life has been what we've been trying to figure out. And in some ways, the wines that we're about to taste through together are going to be a summary of some of that exploration. And that's kind of where we're going to start here. So, Paul, I will let you take over.
I don't remember half of this history because I'm old and memory goes, but yes, through these years, Brenna has not only worked together, she's written up vineyards for our website. That was the first job and things like that, but also she's become one of my best friends. But on the work side, terroir, this mysterious thing which a lot of people deny, was very poorly communicated. I mean, it is the basis of the philosophy of Burgundy. And thanks for crediting me for your tasting education, but also Raj Parr, another importer, Ted Vance, a group of us. And very quickly, Brenna became a really good taster and saw what we saw. And that was a huge advantage because finally we had a scientist on our side. Not a scientist trying to say, you liars, terroir doesn't exist. And
marketing.
Yes, and that was just like so empowering to have a scientist like, okay, I don't care if we know the scientific pathway to why this is real. I know it's real and we're just going to go off of this basis because she could taste and therefore see what we see. And that is what the tasting is based on. And I use the word minerality, and we're not here to tell you what minerality is, but we are here to tell you what we think it is. And a lot of the domains we work with think it is, and specifically how to taste it, because it's not obvious. So the first flight has to be a little policed, a little rigid, because we only have one bottle of each wine. You only have one glass, and we're going to have to taste them together 3 times. So if you have no wine left by the time we get to the second time, it's your problem. But that's the plan. We're going to taste 3 or 4 times together. So the first time, for example, I'm just going to ask you to take 1 sip when they're all 3 lined up and tell us what your favorite is, and then we'll go from there. But please take your time and leave some wine in the glass. And we pour,
cheating,
what did
Jordan.
we decide, left to right, Brenna?
Together, Paul and I pour 3 wines around the table into the 3 glasses in front of each guest. All 3 are served blind, which in this case means they've been slipped into an assortment of colorful socks.
Right hand, please. Just hold off.
Everything's fine.
Great.
And you can smell them, but don't
Really, no urgency.
taste. You need enough wine to.
I'm the wine, it's not him. He's coming.
Nope, it's not your fault. I'm a klutz. So I never worked in a restaurant.
Thanks, Paul.
Welcome.
Ooh, I really have never worked in a restaurant.
Actually, from Brenna's. We needed.
Really?
Yeah.
So the other thing you'll be seeing a selection of tonight are all of my best socks.
And so
I'm going to sneak on this side of you.
In
because
all seriousness, is that just helping you with you have the temperature you want? Or?
they are to keep it blind.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, myself.
Am I gonna go? Did I manage?
We've never done a structured tasting like this.
I know,
You guys are guinea pigs.
You're horrified. He's absolutely horrified.
I was horrified when I first heard
He's
about it.
so
cheating.
horrified.
Brenna and Paul have kept the wines away from me, so I don't know exactly what they are, but I know how many bottles we have. And it's possible that if you drank everything, it would be...
You don't have to.
It could affect you. But it's not an overwhelming amount of wine, so spit or not as you wish.
But if you don't spit, don't drive. So yeah, the first one is very simple. Take 1 sip, because you're going to need more wine. What's your favorite? It's a quick one, so I'm going to go around the table.
Go.
My favorite was 1.
Yes.
3.
Mm-hmm.
I think 1.
Mm-hmm. Jamie.
1, 2.
Mm-hmm.
1 also.
1 also.
3.
1, 2, 3.
My initial reaction was 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
1.
1, 2, 3,
2.
2. So what you have are 3 wines from the same winemaker in the same vintage, different levels of hierarchy.
Huh.
And maybe not everybody is familiar with the hierarchy of Burgundy, but it starts with the regional appellations, Bourgogne, then a specific village, then if the village has some, Premier Crus, first crus, and then if the village has some of those, Grand Crus. So you have a Bourgogne, you have a village, and you have a Premier Cru in this slide. Not in order. And there's a trap. But the thing about minerality in Burgundy is it's kind of slow to reveal itself, sometimes over time, sometimes in the glass, sometimes with age, but also there's a very specific way to taste for it, which is not as obvious as people think. But also it makes the wines tighter and often more aggressive when they're young, which is why sometimes maybe a lesser hierarchy is going to be way more pleasing. And all of this has, where they're positioned on the slope is very neat and logical, and there's a reason why they are that way.
As a quick reminder, we're talking about the hierarchy of Burgundian vineyards here. At the lowest level are the regional Bourgogne wines, found in somewhat less desirable locations, often at the very bottom of the slope. Then the village or village level wines for each village. Occasionally, individual vineyards are given a specific name, or lieu-dit, but most often are blended together to create a wine that should exemplify the character of that village. Above village wines are the Premier Crus, historically recognized plots of land known by names that far precede any current ownership. The Premier Crus tend to hug the very middle of the slope here, where that balance of clay and limestone is just right. And above those are the Grand Crus, true terroir royalty. Grand Crus are higher in hierarchy than the Premier Crus, but not necessarily in elevation. The Grand Crus also tend to hug the middle of the slope, but they're reserved for only the most prized, the most individualized terroirs with the highest potential for greatness.
So let's do, before you guys, some of you have no wine left, which is going to be a pity. Let's do a couple more things. So only focusing on how long the wine lasts. Let's sort of count out the seconds, like 1, 2, but that's all you're going to focus on. You don't, not taste, not I like, not the front, just how long it lasts. Let's try to count through.
On your tongue.
Just keeping it in your
Actually, it's on the back of the tongue, the throat, sometimes the roof of your mouth, but it's definitely in the once you've swallowed, most of the flavors are going to be in the middle and the back.
Okay.
And it's just how long you feel a persistence of
Okay.
either flavor or texture. So number 1. Let's all try to start at the same time.
We all take a sip of the first wine together, and Paul holds up his hands to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Like 8-ish.
12.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I get about 12 too.
Okay, 12. You two are going to count the next one.
It's going to be a long count coming up.
Okay, already at the same time? Let's do it. I'm not counting because I don't want to influence. I know where the wines are.
7.
17.
5, 6.
What? I'm at 18.
Yeah. I think texturally it's shorter, but flavor-wise it lasts longer.
I mean, the acid on this one's on your tongue for
But that's where we're going.
A very long time. For me, but I mean,
Yes.
that one's good.
I thought it was a lighter sustain at the beginning, but then it just kind of kept going in that way. He's saying it for me.
There's like a phenolic quality to it that I feel like shortens it, but there's still complexity to it. If that makes sense.
But if it shortens it, does nothing persist after it
Well,
for you?
that's-
That's what we're counting. Not a specific one, not just how long, when does it disappear? When does it stop doing anything
Like
in your palate?
17 or 18
Okay.
I was at 17.
Yeah.
for a while.
Okay, and then let's do number 3.
Don't tell Paul.
14.
9.
I thought it was the shortest one.
That was a short for me. Yeah, that was much shorter. That was like 5 or 6.
Maybe I'm just too affected by the acid right now, but felt like it went downhill. Or like it sloped.
Okay.
It was 12 for me on that one. The other one I had it like 20.
If I try to get actually a majority consensus out of this, it seems that most people agree that number 2 is the longest.
Yes.
Was for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then number 1 and number 3 are sort of
Yeah.
right.
I think 1 and 2 are more similar.
3 was a lot shorter. Yeah,
3 was the
for me.
shortest, yeah. That's it.
Okay. Well, number 2 is the Premier Coup.
That's the premier.
That length, you can't, this is why it's based on physicality. It's not going to lie what it is. The trap was that, so you have the Bourgogne,
Yeah.
the Village, and the Premier Cru.
He points to wine number 1, Bourgogne, wine number 3, Village, and wine number 2, Premier Cru.
We had 2 number 2 favorites, you and Abe.
Trust the master.
No, it's just to demonstrate that's length. We're not yet at the minerality part, by the way. I chose an incredibly mean Premier Cru on purpose. I usually pour this one, and it always trumps everybody.
It always
At
does
first.
what?
It usually trumps people. It's never the favorite,
Oh.
right?
Is that because of the kind of the
Because it's acidic, it's mineral, it's tight, it's stony. You know, that it abruptly stops. The word abrupt, I don't think it stops. Well, the word abrupt is like, yeah, you know, it's nasty. Wine number 3, Michel Lafarge, whenever I...
All of the wines are made by Benjamin Leroux, and they are all from the 2022 vintage. The Village wine, number 3, is Océ de Race, and the Premier Cru is Merceau Blagny La Pisse sous le Bois.
And
Got a little.
so there's 2 things here. Minerality is not pretty. It's hard. And the second thing is that it has to be separated away from the performance of a wine, how it's showing. So, and it's okay to prefer something that's not the greatest. All of this is okay for certain dishes, for certain times, for sometimes you don't want to fight this kind of mean mineral wine. You want cuddles for wine. You know? It's okay.
Warm embrace.
It's okay to like the embrace. It's a pretty remarkable vineyard, and one that Brenda spent a lot of time in, including digging holes.
Yes.
This exact vineyard.
If you're familiar with Merceau, you think of the kind of main slope of Merceau, where you have that like normal pattern of like shallow soils at the top. There's like really, really famous Premier Crus in the middle, and then back to Village at the bottom. And in Meursault, there's also like a little repeat behind that. So right behind it, you have...
I call it a penthouse, by the way.
A penthouse.
There's a
penthouse?
There's a penthouse on top.
So there's this little wooded patch at the top of the Premier Cruz in Blagny, and then you go up and over it, and there's actually a big like hump of, we think probably dolomitic limestone or some sort of faulted and brecciated and cemented hard patch of rock. And then right behind that, you have another slope of pretty much purely untouched, beautiful forested vineyard. And that's Blagny, and the main part right behind the famous Meursault Premier Cruz is La Piste sous le Bois, which is the Premier Cru Meursault Blagny. And if it's red, it's still Premier Cru?
It's still Premier Cru, it's just called Blagny, not
But it's
Meursault.
just
Blagny
called
Premier Cru.
Blagny.
Instead of
La Piste sous le
Meursault,
Bois.
Blagny Premier Cru.
And that means the piece under the wood. And I've worked with Ben there. I've dug a bunch of holes. The geology is really, really cool. You know, a lot of Meursault has been quarried and kind of mixed up by human activity, and Blagny is really cool because it's very untouched. There's the top of the slope is this white marl, and it gets deeper into these darker, more clay-rich things at the bottom.
Reddit took me here. I took a photo. It's beautiful.
So the white soil at the very, very top is white marl, and it's super, super calcareous, which means filled with calcium carbonate, which means that the soil is more alkaline as opposed to acidic. And there's a rule in wine where if the soils are more alkaline, less acidic, the resulting wines are more acidic. So white soils, particularly in Burgundy, tend to be more calcareous, which means they're actually quite harsh, and the wines can be very intensely mineral.
And austere.
Yeah.
So if you're down on the slope and you're still in a Premier Cru thing, and you have a redder clay or a browner clay, you're still going to have that minerality of the limestone, maybe less, but you're going to have generosity around it. And so it'll go more, this is a mean Premier Cru.
Yeah.
It's a mean Premier Cru. So one last exercise. Does everybody have some of the Blagny left? So when you tasted at first, you tasted with your global impression, however you taste. And we're conditioned to like or dislike as soon as it's in the mouth. It's a natural reaction because this tells you if something's too hot, too cold, poison, if it's bitter, or all of that. So, and when your brain is occupied doing that, it doesn't necessarily see the rest because parts of the rest can be really subtle. And it's not a question of tasting for acidity or this or that, it's more a question of time. And at first you taste all the sweet round fruit elements, then you taste acid, tannins begin, and then acid persists, sometimes alcohol. It's a matter of 4 seconds. So we're gonna go right before the finish. And in the middle of your mouth, either pressure against your tongue or pressure against the roof of your mouth. It is a very subtle pressure, but if you can see it, it's like something pressing up against, in this wine, harder than the two others. That's exactly where we believe minerality is tasted in a young wine. If your brain's preoccupied saying this is good or bad, oops, too late, you haven't seen it. As a wine ages, as a wine breathes in a glass, it expands, it nourishes the wine, then it melts into the wine, this minerality, especially with age. So taste it. Generally starts around second 2. You're going to get this pressure somewhere in the middle of the mouth, bottom or top. So first of all, we're done with the class. That was the flight. Now we can have a conversation.
Yes.
That was, what we believe minerality is in Burgundy and all the mines we work with. A lot of people we exchange with is that pressure in the mid palate, or today was more on the back of my tongue, but it's in the middle rather the front and the end. If you're not looking for it, it's going to be silent because it's subtle enough to be nothing, but if you focus on it, it is everything. We don't understand chemically why, what, whatever, but it does feed the wines. All the hierarchy of Burgundy was built on this minerality. In a time where what was precious is what lasted, what kept. And the wines that kept were the wines that were the most famous, because the most precious. And so they built it on its staying power, and staying power, aging power, is linked to this kind of mid-palate concentration and minerality.
This notion of pressure is one of the most important pieces of tasting education that I've learned, and it does take some practice. It's about tuning out the aromatics, extending the time you spend with the wine and feeling through it, into its bones, into its soul. Paul is instructing us to first find the length of the wine, find the essence of the wine that's still there after it's left your mouth, and then the minerality part comes in. What happens during the finish? Where does it go? What shape does it take? As everyone finishes up their tasting, Paul and I begin to pour the second flight of wines.
Next slide, just quickly. Same hierarchy as Bruno Claire Marcinet. 3 different single vineyards. Different positions on the slope, different colors of clay, different bedrocks. That's it. There's no, there's no trick, there's no traps, there's no...
I like the trick. I think it was the best 3-card Monte game, I think.
Yeah.
As we taste through this round of red wines, we all practice our new skills.
So I've never heard the notion of pressure before, and it made a lot of sense. And I could see looking around the table, lots of people nodded. So it made me feel like you produced something that we could sense. And now here's my question for you guys. I was thinking a lot about another event here led by Pascaline Lepeltier, who sat in Paul's position. And one of the things that she and I kept talking about was something like absence or disappearance. I felt it on the edge of some of your questions because Paul, in asking us to talk about the finish, was asking us to swallow first and then think about something like the presence of the wine in your mouth, but after the physical presence is gone. And even the pressure, it's not clear to me whether what you meant by pressure was something that could only take place when the wine was physically in your mouth, or could it take place when you've already swallowed?
It takes place after you swallow.
Indeed. So this is my question about pressure. Pressure, if I'm not mistaken, is a metaphor, even if it's a really vivid one. I don't mean that in a negative way at all. I don't mean it's only a metaphor.
Yeah.
And so what guides something like our choice of metaphors? That's my question.
So there's a specific wine that we think about a lot when we think about this kind of concept of minerality, and it's Simone B's Leggett. And I should Paul, I'll let you describe the wine because I don't want to say it.
How that Meursault Blangy was mean. You get less meanness from reds because the pHs are higher. However, there is tannin, which is not existed in most whites. But you rarely get this, they're rarely as mineral as whites, as that Blangy was. However, there are a couple of vineyards that are so stony, so mean. Should I really? Is it really an icky analogy?
You have to now.
Yeah. You gotta do it. We know.
My analogy for it is American History X when the guy gets curbed. It's such a slab of limestone. It's so violently calcareous. He wanted me. He set me up. So there you go.
But for me, it's And when you think about this in the concept of like metaphor, how can a wine be intense and abrupt? Like there's something like, like sharp about it, and yet long. Like what is it that's reverberating?
Ooh.
And so I don't know. And that's where I have often thought the same thing about like, is it real? Is it a metaphor? Is it just the strength of this short thing that I'm still feeling the impact of? Or is there a long presence? And how can a long presence be short?
Is a metaphor, but it's a really powerful one. It's really clear that it works. No one looked at you like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Everybody was like...
It is the most aggressive wine without the flight. And to take this beyond Burgundy, and Burgundy, I think the vocabulary of wine falls short because nobody allows themselves to go to metaphors that are unpleasant because we're selling, so it's got to be soft and it's got to be vanilla-y or chocolatey, or actually a lot of the important things in wine, especially if you're going to age it, especially if you're going to go for those places that express minerality, they're hard. They're not pretty, they're cubist, they're not romantic, they're actually, aggressive. Can we talk about these three wines?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
to let you know what's in the glass as far as soil types, and and then we can go straight back to
Free for all.
because before we have no wine in the glass. Brenna, please.
Can you go over which is in which
Oh,
glass?
so Vaudinelle is number 1. Number 2 is Gastet, and number 3 is Langerois.
Okay.
These are the names of the specific vineyards. They're the same winemaker, same vintage. They're roughly made the same way. It's as scientific as we can get. Maybe the vineyards are not planted the same year, but they all always like this every year.
So Vaudinelle in the first glass, it's a very interesting vineyard at the very top of the slope of Marsanne. So there's actually a quarry right below it. So there's like a sheer wall that this vineyard sits on top of. And so there's a slope below it, but this sits a little bit on that like top plateau. And the soils sit on top of this kind of oystery Ostrea acuminata marl. But the soils are very shallow and they're really loose and kind of gravelly. And Bruno calls it rabbit earth because rabbits can kind of like burrow under it. So that's a good just kind of image. Light in color, kind of a beige tan color.
Yeah, milk coffee. Coffee with a lot of milk. That's the color.
Right.
And then Grasse Tête is the middle. And so this is a little bit more mid-slope. It's just above the village of Marsanne, more classic. The pure soil on top is quite shallow and clay-rich, but then right below that, like 20 centimeters or so pretty shallow, you start getting these big boulders of limestone. Actually, the same limestone in the first vineyard, but in boulder form. So broken up into these big, giant blocks, and some of them are about head size, and some of them are bigger. And the name of this vineyard, Grasse Tête, is fat head. So they're like fat head boulders that are
boulders
in the vineyard. And then Langerois is a big, huge vineyard that top of the slope to the bottom of the slope. It has all sorts of different geology. Depending on where you are, you'll get totally different things. Little corners of it have something called grès-lité, which is cryoclastic gravels, which essentially means that the bedrock itself was like infiltrated with groundwater, and then that groundwater froze and it shattered the rock as it expanded. So you get these really angular, tiny little pieces of gravels that are in place because they just kind of shattered into place through the freeze-thaw. There's other areas that are more limestoney. There are other areas at the bottom of the slope that are deeper. Top of the slope is shallower. Paul will know more about the specific parcels that come from here, but there's a bit of a mix of different things.
What it does to the wines, the top slope, light-colored soil, lightest, does everybody agree? Like most ethereal. Mm-hmm. You don't get velvet or thickness when the soils are white. Mm-hmm. They will always have this lightness. 10, 15 years ago, when there was less ripeness in the climate and when winemaking was slightly different, they were skinny and harsh. They were not great vineyards. But today, with better ripeness, also they're high in altitude, so they do keep a little more freshness. But without red or brown in the clay, which is the case, you will never get size. And so they're considered to be pretty. I actually like this type of wine a lot. I like the grace. I don't care if it's serious. I think it goes with more foods. Middle is orange soil, iron oxide. As soon as you get iron oxide, you do get that velvet. I usually point to my stomach and go, love handles. But that little bit of sexiness that makes a great vineyard. You know, we think minerality expresses itself, or soil expresses itself mostly by texture. Iron, smell, texture, and taste. Iron does taste a little like blood, or blood orange, or things that are more savory or more umami. It leaves slightly the black or red fruit to go into like slightly umami. And then lastly, you have more the archetype of a classic, really great wine. Then it's a mixed soil. The resulting wine is obviously bigger than this, not as rich as this, but more linear. Like if you taste what persists, it's just incredibly linear. Part of this has nothing to do with terroir, but it has to do with genetic material, which is something we never talk about. But these two always, the archetypes of just the soil color. Like you're not going to get weight if this white soil is going to be light and maybe even austere depending on where. And if you have iron, you're going to get more richness, more umami flavor that departs from just black or red fruit to something a little more complex. Most of the great vineyards are on reddish clay.
You learn this textural version of what minerality is as opposed to an aromatic minerality like petrol or wet rock or something, which is still a valid thing to think about and to observe. But there's this textural minerality. And then the idea with these wines and with, you know, as we go on to taste wines is not just whether or not there's this pressure and there's this shape there, but what shape does it take? Where does it go? And those are the things that change according to different geologies, different soils, different places. And those are the things that we think about the most. Those are the most important lessons that I've learned from Paul. They're the things you can look at, you know, sometimes regardless of winemaking style, and, you know, try to focus on the place.
And it's the absence of it is not necessarily a bad thing. The first quality of a natural red is actually the absence of tannin, not a single tannin. And that's a great wine. It's a great wine to chill, and they can get a sort of persistence through other things, like sort of energy that keeps them alive, as opposed to, you know, these are built like a church, you know. There's Gothic, which is going to have a certain shape, and there's Romanesque, which will have another shape. There's this tannic structure that supports the wine, which does not exist in most natural wine, in 99% of natural wine. And so even this, which is not very tannic, may be hard to drink for a lot of people.
Number 3, you're saying?
Number 2, especially, I think. So number 2, again, when you have iron in clay is magical. It's actually hiding the tannins of the fatheads. It's coating it, but actually the tannins of the fatheads are harder than the tannins of the Longchamp. But it's coated by iron, and iron's just the magical thing in clay and limestone. It's just like so good, you know. It's like Photoshop and salt and pepper, and it's just it's everything.
Wine's opening in the glass too.
Yeah, it's got the iron and it's really pretty, but if you go again just back to the finish, you're gonna it's gonna slap your palate.
By now, it's dark outside and the candle wax is stylishly drizzling down the holders. We taste another flight of wines and talk about natural winemaking and organic and biodynamic farming. The conversation gets livelier as the wine makes us all a little more comfortable. Paul pours another wine for us all blind, and everyone's shocked that it's a German Pinot Noir. Abe generously opens a bottle of 1989 Lafarge Bonne Grève, and we all drink it with reverence, quietly sensing the minerality of the back palate and how it's melted into the wine with time. Eventually, someone pulls out a box of pastrami sandwiches, and we all get up from our assigned seats, drinking and catching up with our new friends from across the table, while contemplating the pairing qualities of Burgundy and sauerkraut. Kaylee turns up the music. We inspect the bottles. I collect my socks. And we enjoy each other's company just as much as we enjoy the final tastes of each bottle.
I'm 100% in that.
Amazing.
Thank you for listening. We will be back on October 31st to learn all about the witchy ways of biodynamic farming. Thank you to Paul Wasserman for sharing your expertise with me over these past 10 years, to Abe Schoener for hosting us in your magical space, and to all of the guests for sharing your enthusiasm and tasting prowess. Roadside Terroir is hosted and produced by me, Brenna Quigley, sound engineering, original music, and sound design by Jeff Alvarez, with an assist from Nick Canepa. Thank you to Claire Shaheen, Paul Knittel, and Kaylee Weinberger for helping to make this episode special. This episode is sponsored by Becky Wasserman and Company, who represent the winemakers featured in this episode, and Paul too, of course. If you liked this episode, please share it and give us a review. It really does make a difference. Thank you, as always, to our Grand Cru patrons, Stephen and Amy Lippin. This season wouldn't be possible without the support from all of you. Check out our website, roadsideterroir.com, to learn how you can stay in touch and how to help support this season by donating, sponsoring, or becoming a Roadside Insider. Want more Roadside Terroir? Check out our YouTube channel and our website, roadsideterroir.com. Roadside Insiders get access to extended interviews, maps, photos, and more, plus invitations to events and trips to explore terroirs around the world with me. See you soon.
You guys, I am very impressed with your insatiability and your stamina, but I'm still in agricultural time. So this is almost past my bedtime.
Okay.
And I must bring this to a close. And the way to do it is, first of all, to thank all of you at the table. Thank you so much for coming. Almost none of you have been here before, so what a chance you took. Thank you so much. But we must thank, most of all, Brenna and Paul for leading us.
Cheers.
And for imparting so much. I'll let you know
That was
about
a great
the next
speech,
one.
but we're just going to stay here.
We're not leaving.
Okay, I need to take a picture. I need to take a picture of the bottles.